Hi everyone, this is Yafi Lvova, registered dietitian nutritionist with Baby Bloom Nutrition, and I'm having a few technical difficulties with this particular broadcast because I'm trying to do some screen sharing here. It doesn't seem to be working, so we're just going to proceed. Today I want to talk about your overweight child. Should you put them on a diet or not? So I want you to comment, do you have a child who you would consider overweight, who you think needs some intervention, or have you explored this before? Are you facing this particular struggle? So comment, let me know if this is something that you are struggling with right now, or if you struggled with it in the past and how you dealt with it. So here's the thing, the AAP, American Academy of Pediatrics, has changed their position. Prior to 2016, they were recommending that for a child with a particular BMI, they should consider focused weight loss, intense changes, and for teenagers, even surgery. And in 2016, all of that was upended when it was finally recognized that we can't prioritize physical health over emotional and social health, that these recommendations were leading to more obesity, were leading to eating disorders and disordered eating and other social isolation, food preoccupation, and that this was not the way to move forward. That by giving this advice, it may result in a lower BMI, body mass index, which reflects your size. But more often than not, it was damaging psychologically. And that is why the recommendation is that children should not be on diets. End of story. Does that mean that you can't do anything to promote health in your family? No, of course that doesn't. It just means that we need to stay away from certain formal programs that promote weight loss. We need to look at nutrition as an all-encompassing idea, that it's not just limited to an arbitrary checklist of micro and macronutrients. We need to think about the social environment, the emotional environment, as well as activity and what goes in your mouth. I mean, all of that, these are all really big, important factors when it comes to a child's health. And it is as a dietitian, I think it's our most important job as parents to guide our children towards a healthy relationship with food so that they don't have this obsession and preoccupation with food that we have. That, well, maybe you don't specifically have it, but especially in our generation, the previous generations, a lot of us are very involved with diet culture and the obsession to be a particular size. So what can you do about it? First, why am I doing this broadcast? Because I'm angry. I'm just going to put that out there. I am angry. I see a lot of posts on Facebook about children and their weight and how it should be handled. And as I addressed last week with your underweight child, you don't want to take advice on Facebook. You don't want to take advice from someone who's trying to sell you something but doesn't have the appropriate credentials, education, experience, supervision in order to look at your family and your family history, your medical history, emotional and social history, and determine where to go in order to pursue a healthy lifestyle. You really want to be sure to take your advice from a reasonable and responsible source. So who told you there's a problem with your child? Is there a problem? Did you hear it from a neighbor, a friend, family member, the checkout person at Trader Joe's? Just kidding, I love Trader Joe's. But still, is it from a relative, from a stranger? Or did your pediatrician say something about your child being the wrong size? Let's just put that in quotes, the wrong size. So here's the thing. Children really identify, they really internalize what you say to them, and they will identify with that. So if you tell a child, you can't have this food, it's bad. Whatever that food is, whether it's grapes, and yes, I'm not going out on a limb. There are children being told that grapes are bad because they are too high in sugar. Whether you're telling them that it's grapes that are bad or a cake that's bad, they hear that as, I am bad if I eat that. That food has been moralized and now impacts who they are as a person when they decide to have some. Now let's take that one step further. If a child hears through a nutrition program at school that grapes are bad, and then goes home and the unsuspecting mother laid out a very well-balanced and well-meaning snack that includes grapes, that child not only thinks I'm bad if I eat those, but mommy's bad for giving them to me. So we have to be very careful when expressing ideas of nutrition to children because they're not in control of their nutrition. So we need to be very careful. So what is appropriate? It depends on the age. So I'm going to, well, I had a slide prepared, but it doesn't seem to be working out so well to share that. So a friend of mine, Dina Cohen, who is an eating disorder registered dietitian, wrote a fantastic article that hopefully I will be able to link to if I get permission. Dina, if you're watching, give me the thumbs up. From ages 2 to 5, we need to expose children to a variety of foods. And this actually starts earlier. Once you start with solid food, you should give them a variety of different types of food to expose them to different flavors and textures and colors. Just a lot of different exposure is really going to set them up to be more open-minded as they move forward. So you can teach them about where different foods come from. And you can talk, for instance, about broccoli. What does it look like? What does it sound like when you crunch it? What does it feel like in your mouth? Where do you think it grows? Can you eat that broccoli like a dinosaur? How do you think a dinosaur would eat that broccoli? This is all appropriate conversation with a small child concerning broccoli, and it could be concerning anything. Have fun with it. But what you want to stay away from is broccoli is better than cake because that's not really, it's not productive, and it's not going to feel good to the child. They're not going to take as much away from it. And once you go negative, children tend to block you out. You ever think about how you yell at your children and be like, don't do this, don't do that. They don't respond as well as if you tell them what to do or you encourage them in a more positive way. So it's the same with nutrition. If you go to a negative place, they put up a wall. So you can talk about that and you can cook too. And in her article, Dina says that you can do that from age 5 to 7. But I'm an advocate of cooking very early with kids. I do toddler test kitchen at the Hadley Hart Children's Museum starting at age 2. Yesterday, we actually had a guest who was 19 months old, and while she wasn't as focused, because it's not appropriate at that age to expect a lot of focus, she had a blast making sushi. So you can really start much earlier. I've been posting pictures of my little guy at 18 months hitting the buttons on the food processor and the blender. You can start with that. This is a very healthy way to introduce these concepts. Also, gardening, singing, watch YouTube videos of goldfish eating broccoli. There's a lot of fun stuff out there that's available if you just look for it. So between age 5 and 7, get a little more advanced with your cooking and visit a farm, do some gardening, talk more about foods and where they come from and how you might cook them. If you add a little bit of salt, what do you think that would change in the flavor? What do you think changes if you cook something versus if you have it raw? These are great conversations to have with kids between 5 and 7. Once they get a little bit older, between 7 and 11, you can start talking about food science at that point. And you still want to keep things positive. You still want to talk about different nutrients and what they do to your body and avoid, but cake doesn't help you grow. I've heard this, we have healthy versus not healthy. We have good versus bad. And we have grow versus woe. There are grow foods and there are woe foods. This is also negative. All of that is an example of putting morals on food, and the kids are going to absorb that in an unhealthy way, and it will lead to an unhealthy relationship with food, which lasts your whole life. So what can you do? How can you do this? So Dina wrote, when we have pizza, we're getting some dairy. Yes, from the cheese. You can talk about the fat content. You can talk about how cheese melts and why and all of that. The crust is grain. And you talk about how the different properties of any given meal are going to help in different ways. I started doing that from a much younger age, just because you're supposed to talk to your kids at the table, and nutrition science is always just on the top of my mind. So I always just talk to them about that. We talk about what grows on vines versus what grows on trees or in the ground. And these are all fun conversations for kids of any age. So as they get older, you can get more advanced with these skills. You can get more involved with the nutrition science. You can get more involved in their and their cooking skills. And that's a really fun, positive way to introduce these nutrition concepts. So what does this all have to do with your child's body size and dieting? Well, we really want to get away from that concept. You don't want to talk to your child about their weight. You don't want to put them on the scale and have any kind of reaction. It's necessary when they're at the doctor to get weighed, because weight can be a symptom of undernutrition or some other underlying hormonal condition or what have you. It can indicate a lot, which is why it's so important to get those weights when you're at the doctor. It is the opposite when you're at home. You do not need to weigh your child. You do not need to talk about their weight. Should you choose to pursue more healthy and more nutritious meals and more healthy life patterns, you don't need to talk to your child about that as it relates to their weight. You don't need to say, we're doing this so you can look like the other kids. We're doing this so you can be smaller or fit in these clothes or whatever. You just really want to stay away from those conversations, because kids just take that to heart so much. And what they hear isn't, I want you to be healthy. What they hear is, I'm not good enough. And I'm never going to be good enough. And this is why dieting leads to obesity and eating disorders and extreme weight loss measures. So you want to look first, talk to your doctor. Look at the growth charts. If your child was at the 90th percentile at birth, the 90th percentile at age 5, they're probably going to be at the 90th percentile when they're teenagers as well. That's just a projection of their growth. That's normal. It doesn't mean that that's bad. It doesn't mean that's something that needs to be micromanaged. When you micromanage their nutrition, they do get that negative energy and they do take that to heart and they internalize it. So we don't want to diet. You don't want to diet. If you see someone posting a before and after picture of a 10-year-old who lost 20 pounds on their weight loss plan, run the other way. The American Academy of Pediatrics is very clear. We do not put children on diets. We focus on family meals because that has benefits both socially and nutritionally. When you have a family meal, you're less likely to just grab something and eat it. More planning goes into it, more thought goes into it, and that has nutritional benefits. And sitting with your family has social benefits. You talk about the day. You have more mindful meals as you have no distractions at the table, no TV, no cell phones. And that leads to more of a social health environment as well. You really want to just stay away from all the negative. Okay, getting back to that piece of cake. I'm bad because I ate it. But we were at a wedding and grandma gave me a piece of cake, and so now grandma's bad too. It creates a lack of trust with the caregiver when a child thinks that something is bad and someone gave it to them. It's much better to teach moderation and to experience moderation in your house. This is really the way to create a healthy relationship with food. If you feel like you need help establishing balance in your house so that your entire family can be on a more healthy path, definitely contact a registered dietitian who is using division of responsibility, intuitive eating, and a very gentle nutrition approach. You want to enjoy this time with your children. You don't want it to be rife with struggle and with micromanaging nutrition. Think about how awful it feels to be obsessed with food, to think about every bite that goes in your mouth, to deny yourself. Don't we want to save our children from that fate? We've all been sucked into this culture at one point or another, and we can prevent that in our children by just taking gentle nutrition steps and teaching nutrition in a positive and encouraging way. As far as movement, it should be joyful. I did a nap time nutrition on joyful movement with trainer Sarah Kupfer, and we talked about different ways that kids can move, and adults even can move in a happy way. You should look forward to your exercise time. You shouldn't be dreading it. And I'm looking forward to some exercise time now. So come visit me at Toddler Test Kitchen in Tempe, Arizona. We cook 2 through 6 year olds, and they cook. We made sushi yesterday. We're doing baked falafel next week. We have a summer series that is going around the world twice. So come join us. I'll post the link for registration Follow me on Pinterest, pinterest.com/Yafi, babybloomnutrition.com, my Facebook, you're right here, and hopefully for next week's Naptime Nutrition, I'll figure out this darn screen sharing thing and get that handled. And you can look at more than just my face. I have about 16 hours now of Naptime Nutrition logged on my Facebook page under videos. So go check that out. And if you have any questions, comments, concerns, I would love to hear from you. Please comment and share this if it was really helpful. See you next week on Naptime Nutrition at 1 p.m. Arizona time, which is 1 p.m. West Coast time and 4 p.m. East Coast time. Thank you for watching.